I'm going to introduce you to the folks that are here. We got Jamie Blackburn. He's the director of iAdvantage. We got Kelly Chapman. She's one of the scientists out on location in, where is that in Maine? An undisclosed location in Maine, apparently. Lincoln, someplace near Lincoln. And Daniel Thompson, he's an eStudy project manager, because eStudy is one of the products that we're going to look at today. And while we're at it, Daniel, give us a dose of what iAdvantage is all about and when you guys got started and how it works.
Absolutely, Dave. So thanks everybody for joining. Just a little bit of a background. iAdvantage is a scientific software as a service company that was founded in 2003 out of a group of scientists. And it was born out of a necessity. Basically, people were drowning in paperwork at this time, keeping up with registrations of pesticides, herbicides, things like that. So, we have a long track record of data capture, data management, and data reporting to a lot of the agencies. A lot of these people in this webinar are from USDA, EPA, FDA. We are a small business, and we are also a GSA schedule holder. So looking forward to having a great discussion.
Yeah, love it, man. And you might want to fix your Bluetooth, because something just...
Is it messing up?
It's messing up. It's not. You're not as crystal clear.
See.
You look great. You look
Thank you. I appreciate it. The camera must make me look better.
There you go. So, and we do want to welcome all the folks. This is much more. We've done interagency briefings across different agencies talking about this and the scientific methodology. But this one, we're really talking USDA, EPA, FDA, and the sub agencies. We have folks across the board that have registered for this. We appreciate you guys joining us. And let us know what will make this a great briefing for you. And you can put that in the Q&A or the chat. There's not that many folks here, so we'll make sure that we'll include you. And while you're letting us know what'll make it great, we had folks that already tell us some of those as they were coming in. But this, you're not going to believe this, Jamie, but this event is not affiliated or endorsed by GSA. We have to say this, or any other agencies, for informational purposes only. And this allows you, as government personnel, to participate, because it's not an endorsement or commitment to purchase from anybody, including iAdvantage. So we got rid of that one. How about that? So yeah. Best briefing ever. If I learn more about data collection and the pitfalls to avoid, I would agree with that. Christopher, I've learned something new. Just anything new for Christopher. You got that? You got that, Daniel? Anything new?
Got it. Loud and clear.
We know that Kelly's coming from Maine. That's something new. I didn't know that. All right. So, Stephen, we get a few laughs while learning about the challenges and opportunities. Hopefully that's true. Phyllis, I come away with an improved data collection design. Hopefully that's true. And how about Davis? It's freaking brief. We'll do our best. Alice, ideas are listened to and quality decisions are made. We hope so. Robert, I learned about a process to ensure 100% data integrity. That's a big issue, isn't it, Jamie?
That's a huge issue.
It's a huge issue. 100% data integrity. That's very important. Patrick, I learned about data resources that I can use in future residue studies. Absolutely. And Philip, I learned the requirements and the best way to provide metadata. What in the world is metadata? Who's going to talk about that?
I'm going to be going into data about data.
Data about data. That would be metadata. All right. All right. So please pop this in the chat for us. If you would like anything addressed, we have Abir, trade-offs and management from systems thinking perspective. Fantastic, Abir. If you want to expound upon that, let us know what that is. Rodney says security. Security, no issue in security in government systems. Nobody wants to do anything bad. Right, Kelly? Nobody wants to do anything bad. So, and John says, ways to access and analyze data in government environment without contractors. John doesn't want any contractors. And that's okay, because as a service, you can do that, right?
That's right.
That's right. You don't need no stinking contractors.
That's the whole reason we came up with the product, was scientists were tired of having an IT team associated with every bit of work.
There you go. I can appreciate that. All right, Kevin, in the age of disinformation, misinformation, no, we're not there. How do we mitigate, rely on incorrect or misleading information? Well, that's why you do the data collection that's right. You do it right and it works, right? Right, Daniel?
That's correct.
Do the data collection work, then it won't be you can always misinterpret it. You can always have people pump the stuff.
You only make that mistake once, right?
There you go. Dane, current process reviews for efficiency. How do we improve current process without overburdening employees? Oh man, we don't want to do that for sure. Overburden the employees. Cynthia, how do we access and use the iAdvantage products? We love the softball from Cynthia, don't we?
Yeah.
Love that one. And from Sigging, I don't know. I'm sorry if I just butchered that. I would like to have a video recording sent to me because I'll be out of the office. You will get that. In fact, it's being recorded right now, and everybody will have that at the end. So we appreciate that. And we have any others that popped in here? And that's right. Kelly Chad, Dave's not kidding. Let us know. Let us know what we want. So we're going to be talking about data challenges, effective design and framework, choosing a platform with scientific methodology, whether you use this one or not. Make sure you're piping out and going after the scientific methodology. We'll explain a little bit about that. Those that are scientists here could actually chime in on that, right, Kelly? We love to have scientists chime in on that. And maximize data flexibility, integrity. That goes to the 100% of data integrity. We love that. And then we'll figure out what we're doing afterwards with your Q&A, however you'd like to do it. I'm going to pop this in just 1 second. I need to grab the link for this. You'll get that. And we love participation, as Kelly said. And if you have something that you don't want everybody and their mother to see, you can send it to info@iAdvantagesoftware.com, and we'll make sure that gets answered for you. All right. So what made you decide to join us today? Are you in R&D and you have a current data collection need? Are you in management? You can pick as many as you want, by the way. Management, you want your data to work? You're tired of scrubbing bad data? Or your boss made you come? So remember the part about humor? That's the injection of humor right there. And if you've ever been here at GovBrief before.
And
So
we really
that,
enjoy having about 85 to 90% of the folks participate on this. So please come on and answer this poll for us.
There you go. And she is responsible for let's see, let me get this, for making sure that everybody does what they're supposed to do with this. All right, let me see if this works.
She's a typical scientist, wants everyone to put in data.
That's right.
All right, so there. And if everybody could just click that and make sure that works. It's a secure drive to make sure working. All right.
Looks to work for me.
Okay, fantastic. Just want to make sure we're transitioning GovBriefs back in right now. I just want to make sure everybody gets a copy of that. And we have 71 participants, and so far they're in R&D and do the collection, and they don't like to do the scrubbing. And 40% been here. Okay, fantastic. We'll end this in 3, 2, 1.
All right.
All right, fantastic. We did it. Got that done. And now we're going to be talking about the big data challenge. Agencies have a problem with big data, don't they, Jamie?
Sure. So we've been talking for over a year now to agencies about this very problem. And the first thing is that every 15 minutes or so, 4 filing cabinets worth of data are going out there. So we're going to cover at least, 8 cabinets today, maybe even 12, right? That's 463 exabytes of data. And an exabyte, if you want to know comparison, is the next one is if we were the Earth, the next one is going to be the size of the sun. So it's important to know that it's not going to stop. It's going to be a continuum of data coming at us. And so we are taking the issue over just how it just coming up, and it's this huge issue, and you have all this summation that occurs. Sometimes they derive it. Sometimes there's no what they call provenance, so you know where it arrived from. The poor documentation about the data, because we move so fast. Everyone here is probably very busy and finding time to break free to meet with us. And it's tricky to take all that data and convert it into something that has value. And so the growing data for use in business intelligence will not scale. It just can't keep going forever. And we know that artificial intelligence is the big promise, but you still have to go back to some basics. And that's what we're going to be talking about here. We need this to be all the stakeholders, the people who come up with the collection, the people who use the collection, the people who review the collections. Everyone has to be involved.
I love that. And so while we're getting everybody involved, let's find out, how do you collect your data right now? Now, we already know what most agency people are going to say, but you can choose as many as you want. But how do you do it now? Spreadsheet, phone and email, paper? Do you have a survey tool? Do you have a professional contractor that John doesn't want to use anymore, apparently? And then SharePoint, and if you do it some other way. So that's the idea. And then how is it working? And we see that sometimes it does create errors, doesn't it? That need to be corrected later. Why would that be, Daniel? Why would there be errors? I don't understand. It should be perfect. It's software. Computers don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
If somebody hasn't learned their lesson yet, I guess. I mean, like I said, you only make that error one time. You try to correct it from there, but there's definitely good practices to take, and hopefully we can get into those here in just a minute.
Even if you're using, like everybody so far is using spreadsheets, that's the one we knew was going to happen, didn't we, Kelly? We knew that was going to be the case.
But we don't want people to scotch their answers either, because believe it or not, we hear paper is still often used as well. So please be 100% honest here.
That's right. And we're not going to report you.
No.
Nope.
So there you go. So we'll give you another 3, 2, 1, and boom. All right. 100%. We got 100%. So
Nice.
here are the results from everybody here. And so there's a lot of folks that are using SharePoint, because that's kind of growing as a methodology too. Fantastic.
Great tool, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great tool. All right. So let's talk about the true value of the data. Jamie, tell us what we're trying to do.
The key for me is that these are things that you should think about. So if you haven't done any requests for data collection before, the first thing I want you to do is just posture, right? Take a position. And the first thing is that you're responsible for the design of that collection. Oftentimes we move so fast that we get everyone's opinion, we put it all together, and oftentimes we're mashing together lots of different thoughts, and we need to be totally a single point of design, a single point of responsibility, that this is where we're going to do. And remember, when we're asking for data, we're asking to spend money, because it takes time out of people's day. It takes time to respond. And if they're not taking the time, even worse, they're wasting time. So it's really important that you think this through from the very beginning and take that responsibility. You really take on a role, and that role is probably the most important before the data starts growing and we're drinking from a fire hose. And then the mistakes in data analysis can be expensive at the back end. So not only could we waste time up front by asking people for data we don't need to ask for, or we didn't ask for correctly, later on, when we're trying to use it, we can find, oh, this wasn't right. We have to go back and ask them. And Dave, I don't know about you, but nothing's worse than being asked to do something, whether it's through, I think we saw SharePoint, or whether it's through a survey tool that you already answered, right? Probably the biggest complaint is when I go to my doctor's office and I'm filling out the same thing. It's like, are you guys not paying attention? And so it's really important that you really plan this out, the full life cycle from the beginning to the end.
And I don't know an agency that doesn't have the problem of trying to make it work after the fact. Everybody that I've ever talked to, and I'm not in your world all the time, but I tell you what, every time I've seen it, it's been, hey, we need to fix what we already have, which gets us to the next question for you guys is, how do you manage it? So one is, how do you get it? And then the next part is, how do you manage it? And then let us know, is it paper or notebook? Because there's actually that happening too, Kelly, right? There are people that have that. And scientists, hey, or it could just be, you're an iPad or something like that, right? So, or you're exporting it to Excel. Do you have a database that you're running up against, or is it a custom data management software that you're using, or some other way? We love it. So, and we also love participation, just like we pulled Ryan out earlier. If you have something you'd like to talk about, that's why we're here. It doesn't have to be one way. So as you're answering that, let's talk about What is the strategy? Talk about
Sure.
if we do this, get your design rate on the front end, that helps tremendously on the back end, doesn't it?
That's right. So here's it. You've taken the position. I am going to collect data and I'm going to be the person responsible. So you're now the steward of this whole process, not just putting together the collection point, but really the whole process. That means that if the data is going to be used 10 years from now, it's important the role you play right now. So you keep your request for the data simple. You want to make sure that there's not a lot of others and a lot of other, what I would call, I don't know how to answer this because I don't agree with all the answers. You want to carefully design that. It is a design process. Sometimes design can take away a lot of the work later on. And in most cases, whether it's a good looking living room or it's a kitchen design or a landscape design, it's very important to have that up front. Decide what to collect and how to protect it. You have to think about what I'm asking these people for and what is value and security. I think we had a big security question before.
Yep.
It's very important to know that you're not collecting data you shouldn't be collecting for fear that you may not be protecting it correctly. And I don't know, I'm living in the world right now of lots of compliance, and I know that we all have responsibilities.
There's no compliance issues with the government, though.
Yeah, no, none at all. Select a project and study management platform. And this is where I'm going to plug us a little bit, and Daniel will talk a little bit about us. But this is what we feel like we excelled in. But there's plenty of other ways, and we saw them. People are using SharePoint, they're using paper, they're using Excel spreadsheets. Excel is the greatest product ever, but there are, I guess, challenges, you would say. But whatever you do, make sure that when you're choosing it, all these things are falling in place. And collect clean, verified data. There is no second try. Remember, when you collect the data and you send it out on Monday morning, is there anything worse that you reread your email and you go, oh, or reread your request, right? Nothing's worse. And like I said, and then to be asked a second time, I sometimes think people would discount me when I did that, right? They would just say, oh, he must not be serious because he's not planning this out right. So these are the practices that have to come right off from the strategic point before you even think about all these pieces and parts. And we go now to the best practices. Now, best practices, it's really important that if you define and design the categories of data, right, the variables you're going to use, it's such an important aspect.
Can you give us an example of some of the categories that you're talking about?
Sure, like whether an address is split apart, whether it includes Lincoln County or the town of Lincoln in Maine, right? We've already heard that there's a whole new view of Maine counties, right? Sure, all the data is entered using the same format, meaning that if 5 different people in 5 different locations, sometimes living in the South, we speak differently of things, and we also use Wake County, our county names in things. So you have to make sure you ask the right question and you know the possible answers. It shouldn't be. As scientists, we rarely, right? Kelly's going to talk a little bit. We rarely don't know all the possible answers, but we have to make sure we tell people. And nothing's worse than acronyms or combinations that just don't scale, right? Close-end responses, yes, no, right? Not other, again, numeric codes versus character strings. Sometimes people know how to quickly convert things in numeric, and then they start lining up as they come collected. In our case, around the world, around countries, around all the different parts of our nation. If any data is unknown, you gotta sit and take the time with your designer to figure out what it could be. Because if you're asking questions just to catch everything, you're going to start running into issues of its usefulness for later on. Remember, a data scientist, someone who's very smart, who's very analytical and very detailed, is going to be pulling it apart. It's going to be looking at every result. And if one's off, it feels wrong. It always feels so wrong just because one's off. So then you say, well, did I ask the question right? Did I ask it with the right demeanor? Well, whatever. It's just going to come up.
And all those are important, right? I mean,
That's
to
right.
be able to process how you're going to ask the question and how they're going to respond. And chances are, if you do a focus group, as soon as you get done with the focus group, somebody's going to try to answer it a different way.
That's right. And here's where we start talking about metadata. That's data about data. There's plenty coming down the line, especially in science, to start unifying the way we look at data and talking about our data when we can't be there. These data scientists work very fast, but guess what they tend not to do is have time to go, let's call up the guy who asked for this. We don't have that time. Well, we could use a good description that we actually read it, right? As data scientists, we actually spend the time reading the instructions and we say, oh, what he meant to ask here was this, and what he got were these type answers. So I don't have to somehow misinterpret it in any way. And remember, you got to test it out. This is not unusual, but even with software, we used to use my wife to test out our software. She knew nothing about its use. And sometimes that's the best test there
Isn't
is.
that true? If you don't know what the use is, then you have a clear, unbiased view.
And she used to ask me those questions like, what does this mean? And I'd get frustrated. But it's such a healthy thing to do.
Well, I just wanted to chime in that I think this is a place where science and software, people that are not in software may not realize that when they talk about finding the right software that works right, that works well for them, most of the time we look at what does the dashboard look like? How do you get from one place to another, etc. But the true game changer comes back to what Jamie just described, and that is, did you pick the right variable setup? Did you select the right choices in terms of units that could be entered? You know, that actual design aspect for what fits your data may make more difference in what software works well for you than the actual functionality of the software itself. Because if you don't frame your data correctly and design it correctly from the beginning, no matter how good the software is, it can't fix that problem.
That's right.
It certainly can't fix human error.
Nope.
Not that any of us here would ever create any errors for ourselves.
And the work that we do is not easy. It's very difficult. And so the first thing when I first came into my role, the first thing when I asked the scientist about why our product, he didn't tell me about its use and how he performed studies. What he told me was the quality of data that comes out is so high. And that's why he found the value of our platform.
Love it. And then this feeds right into that, because you don't want to keep collecting the data if you have the ability to collect it and then reuse the data and future ready. What is this FAIR thing? Tell us about what this means.
So FAIR is a new principle in science in which we're starting to say, how do you describe your data that you're collecting that, right now, who knows how many millions, we're going to talk about how much data is being collected in our world. But it's where we think things are going, so you can actually describe each variable. It's not unusual even for ourselves, right, Daniel? We're going to find out that some scientists can almost rename the same thing to collect in very many ways. And we'd like to get to a point where they almost have like a catalog of what the types you're doing. For years, we used to describe address so many different ways until Google came along and said, no, this is how you do it. And he does that careful thing, if you've used it, where he suggests the right answer, right? I love that. He suggests the right way to describe an address that you knew the whole way, and even if it was your own. So FAIR is starting to break apart the things that you should be able to say about a data value right from the get-go in your design process. You could almost imagine the Excel spreadsheet in which you break down, here's my variables, here's what kind of data we're collecting each one, and here are the FAIR principle points about findable, accessible, so that 10 years from now, when I'm trying to work with a data scientist to say, hey, look at that data I collected in this time frame, he's able to quickly see it. And I'm actually able to refer back to my points on that data. So this metadata is going to continue to grow. And it could be the one way that we solve some of the growth. I don't know how many times the same data about myself is repeated through the world, but I would bet that there's a lot of redundancy of data out there.
It's more than 10.
Yeah.
It's probably more than 1,000.
I'm an old guy, so I bet you there is a lot.
It's funny you say that, because when one of my children were born, I have 6 of them. So I was like, how many? And I was involved in security and identity protection and things. And I was like, okay, so right now, my son, his name and all of his particulars were in 9 places, 9, before I left the hospital.
Wow.
Before we left the hospital. It's like I could count them. And that didn't include the ones that were trickling down. So anyway, that was a little tidbit that nobody expected today. So and one of
Yep.
the whole reason we're here really is to say, how does a scientific methodology help to prepare the process, right? To prepare
right.
you for the process, to execute the process, so that at the end,
Sure.
you have what you want, and it's usable data that you don't have to go cleansing all over the place. How's
You
that?
could almost see this as the thing on the wall, even though it's simple and we all know it. It's just a reminder that you define the problem or the data requirement that you're going to be asking for. You design the process to answer that. You might have a software product. You might say, hey, SharePoint's better than Excel. Oh, these guys' eStudy platform might be a better way because of some of its merits. You then manage that process. You want to know where it's at on Tuesday after you've done it Monday, because you want to know progress. You want to make sure nothing was missed. And then you want to manage and review and communicate, right? So this is the stop, drop, and roll of data science in science. And we found, I forgot how many years, I would say 20 plus, Kelly, right? But for these many years plus, this is why scientists brought forth this product for us as a way to attack this problem. I would say the one thing we don't have is a lot of it's not mismanageable. It's right on track where we want to be and how we want to collect it and move forward. So Daniel will talk more about that in a bit, but it's not in a case of all over the place. It's actually in a single platform and accessible.
Love it. So let's talk, so we're going to talk about design, we're going to talk about collecting, and we're going to talk about getting what we're going to do after that.
Right.
So let's talk about the design. No matter
So
what, this is the right way of design, right?
You're designing your data, you're designing your data values. And oftentimes when we have first customers, recently this year, we had a couple new customers who they think this is very easy. And right, Daniel, they want to just throw this at you. And what they find is that we start asking questions and we really start going through that, because we're looking at it from the standpoint of its life cycle, not to get this project done so I can check this off and tell my boss I get the biggest bonus this year. You got to design it for scientists by scientists, because that's such an important part of our world. You really want to be able to create those studies along with all the supporting study information, because it'll keep repeating. Generally speaking, studies and trials are done in a repetitive format. You don't just do them just once. You want to do them once correctly so you can keep doing them. And again, it's very important to understand the security and how you collect it and who's doing that, so that you can trace it back to this provenance of where it came from and how it was collected. Then you get to collecting part of the methodology, uniform and consistent data collection. I don't want to give the person who's smack in the middle of collecting it. In our case, some cases, it's people in the field. It's a hot day. They're doing this. And all of a sudden, I've changed the way I want to do something. It's not good. And in fact, it also hurts the science. Multiple labs, geography should all be around. They're the same look and feel, and all feel like one in your collection. Online and offline, that's one of the things I think you should put into your RFP if you're looking for a new product. In our case, a lot of people don't have access to a network, and they have to wait till they get network access. And so at that point, it's like a passive collection, but you still have to encrypt the data. You still have to make sure you can still collect the data, all those things. Because sometimes you only get one shot. It's not even like you get a second shot. In our case, a lot of our customers are growing plants. Well, the growing season, day by day, is on a roll, and they're just not waiting for me.
And what happens? So just out of curiosity, because a lot of folks here from EPA and USDA. So what are the implications if you miss the window of the growing season? What happens there?
Can I speak to this?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Absolutely.
I was looking right at you. You didn't know it, but I was looking right at you.
So sometimes we're lucky enough, Dave, that we can repeat that experiment the next year, but it means we've lost an entire season or maybe a whole year. Depending on if it is a geological survey or some type of water quality study, there may be no way to ever go back to that exact time point and get the exact same data that would have been collected at that time and that date. So it's super critical when you're working with living organisms or environmental studies that we don't miss these data points.
Very big implications on that. So I was just curious, because I think, in that world, Because I don't live in that world. It seems like I could ask the question again tomorrow, but you just don't have that opportunity a lot of times.
Sometimes you miss
No.
it.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. All right, so secure and compliant. You have the
Yes.
compliance parts.
I've always stressed this. When you're looking at these slides later on, if you're listening to us, you might use these for your checklist on how you choose what product you're going to use or what software and so forth. So it's important that you actually think of these type of points, because later on you might find we work very hard at our GLP compliance, and right now we're working towards like SOC 2 compliance, and it grows our breadth of capabilities. But there's plenty of people who you don't need this. It's not needed to fulfill the situation. But always ask those questions, because you want a platform that can deal with that. The final one is APIs. No matter what product we might offer, our data is highly useful, but it might be wanted in what? I'm trying to think of all the different products like Smartsheet. Tableau, yeah. So you can go on and on. Well, APIs are bringing a new way. And in fact, we have one API with one customer, a scientist who is basically pulling all the data on a daily basis, thousands of times, right, Daniel? That they're using the API to bypass the need to even ask for the same thing again from the system. Again, it's useful data. They find it useful, and they need it thousands of times during the day. So the API makes it easy to get in whatever way you want. Data scientists and APIs seem to be almost in the same little room nowadays.
And for those of you who don't know what APIs are, if you're a scientist, you might not know what an API is.
That's right.
It's the ability for the two systems to communicate without you having to do the import, export, download, and upload, right? The API enables that.
That's right. So, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you, Dave.
That's all right, man. That's why I'm here. I can inject just a little bit of things every once in a while. All right. Speaking of injecting, how do you communicate? So we designed it, we collected it. Now we want to communicate. So we got it. Now we have to disperse the information. And are you doing it with email with raw data on spreadsheets, or summary for executive communications? Maybe you have dashboards. You mentioned dashboards. Sometimes that's all you want to see, right? You just want to see the dashboards, or your executives just want to see the dashboards. And then paper report or review meetings, obviously. Those are going to happen. And then who is it on? What's your role in this whole thing? Are you just assembling the results? You're trying to make the data make sense? Because sometimes it doesn't make a whole lot of sense what we're doing, and then making decisions with the data. And so this gets us to the reporting functionality. No matter what, you want to have some flexibility in the ability to, because EPA wants to see it one way, USDA wants to see it a different way, right?
So this is the final part of when you're selecting how you're going to do this. And you can almost see how some of my statements fall into an RFP to ask somebody. But the key here is that when you're doing reporting, you've done all the hard work. You spent all the time in designing your variables. You've actually got people responding to the data. You even know how to get to the data and maybe do your own analysis. But there's people who like reports and like them in the same way. And guess what? They not only want the report today, they're going to want it weekly. Well, we've come up with a way, and I think it's a lot because our scientists, I don't want to say, they just wanted to find some performance, right? Cheaper, better, faster. And so our reporting capabilities in our tool allows them to create a template and apply the new data that came in last night and just continue to keep it current. So if I'm asked for a report, I can not only do one just like that, ad hoc, but I can also do one on a regular basis, so it goes out to an email and so forth. I would say that all of these, this is probably the most performance-based. This is the one that helps my personal productivity. If I'm a scientist, the last thing, is there anything worse than you have to do a report and it ends up being Sunday night, while you're trying to, get work done? It's a terrible feeling, but having this tool, it just improves lifestyle. And in fact, this is probably, right, Daniel, this was something that really gave a lot of emphasis, because agencies want data in the same way, and they'd like to see the reporting done in a similar way.
Absolutely.
We've actually asked for this part of the product to be broken out in our case, because people find it so useful.
Many times. Yeah. So just to kind of reiterate what Jamie was saying and kind of put it into a workflow. So whether going back to the survey from earlier, whether you're collecting your data on paper, whether you're using a spreadsheet, whether you're using a specialized software, whatever it may be, in any type of data collection, you can see we have a couple listed out here: studies, experiments, trials, surveys, or even just generic questions. Regardless of what you're doing, we've found that it's best to find something that suits your needs, that follows this workflow, where it enables you to design and you take the time to design, and that enables you to collect quality data so you're not having to spend the time to clean it later. And it also gives you the ability to report easily. Now, not just the ability to report, but again, report easily, because like Jamie said, there's nothing worse than having to scramble a report together and formatting a Word document and exporting a PDF, so on and so forth. So, and these are all characteristics of our eStudy platform. So not only all these three items, it's also important that you're able to repeat this and reuse things and gain efficiencies as you use it. So.
Okay. I always like to look at the beginning one, because if you get the design right, the rest of the flow helps. It helps the rest of the flow, right, Daniel?
Right. Yeah. I mean, in theory, you can design a spreadsheet very well. I mean, and that'll obviously give you more high quality data, but at the same time, I think it's important to look for a software that almost forces you to think out the design and forces you to put constraints on your data collection to give you higher quality data. And that's something that we're very proud of to have implemented a very long time ago and have been doing for many years now. So.
Absolutely. So as far as the basics, right? Tell us what you see as for folks to have the fundamentals, the basic requirements. I know this is what your product does this, so you can speak to this a little bit more directly. But fundamentally, you want everybody to have this kind of access, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So these are things that we've implemented, like you said, into our product. But regardless of what you're using, we feel like this is very crucial. One, that is cloud-based. There's nothing worse than having to VPN to some government network or even commercial network. And if you lose connectivity to that office, to that center, you can't collect data. So, in our opinion, that's a no-go. Also, 100% web-based, so you're not tied to a singular device. You can access it through any device through the internet. Next one being that it's scalable. There's nothing worse than having a downfall of your data because someone didn't plan accordingly, or you're trying to use something that's not meant for wide usage. So being able to collect data all over the world and be able to handle that data is extremely important as well. The fourth option on here is allows for data exchange and integration. This kind of goes back to what Dave and Jamie were talking about with APIs. This is becoming more and more of a prominent thing that people are looking for to tie all these systems together. There's nothing worse than having data in 17 different systems, and then again having to pull all them together for a report. It's a lot of manual data manipulation, and a lot of times a lot of this data loses its quality really quickly. So another one is compliance. There's if you ask me, compliance drives me crazy, but I see a need for it, especially in science. It's becoming more and more prominent. So I think we all need to make sure ahead of time that compliance is something that is checked off. And lastly, you have to be able to get to your data quickly. And especially if you're doing something that's real time, especially in agricultural studies, if you're in season, you want to make sure that you're able to monitor that real time during the collection as well. So there's a lot of different areas that would translate to when you need to, monitor things real time. I'm sure people in the chat will be able to give quite a few examples. So these are the main things that we see as being something that you should look for in whatever solution that you decide to collect your data with.
So when you say real time, does that mean that somebody that's like the project manager can log in and see the progress of the collection process?
Absolutely. So yeah, whether it's a status report or whether it's just being able to put together a quick query, just so you're aware of any anomalies or deviations or things that make you maybe want to switch gears with how you're going, or something that makes you want to just stop it completely. Maybe you see some major red flags and you want to just pull the plug. So things like that can end up saving a lot of time and a lot of money in certain situations.
That's awesome. So as a scientist, so you're out in the field, Kelly, you're doing the data, you're collecting things, and you're in your lane, right? The scientist is in their lane, and it's saying, I want to collect this information, and then the repository and the usage of this. Tell us how this works, at least with eStudy. So we're not going to ask you to talk about somebody else's product, but what you use every day to collect information for USDA, EPA, all the incoming information. How do you do it?
Yeah, it's a joy of this product, but also I want to say that we didn't touch on Daniel's previous slide, the fact of what we had mentioned briefly before is one thing that makes it work so well in what I do and what I was describing if somebody's doing water quality or environmental studies or plant studies is that the product is also designed to be used offline where you don't have connectivity. And as soon as you come back to connectivity, you can upload your data automatically. It's a very smooth, seamless process. And that's, again, because of our experience. We've worked in rural, remote areas for many years and understand that you don't have Wi-Fi everywhere or even a cellular connection. To go back to this slide, though, and your question, Dave, if you look at this slide, it shows a thought process that is very familiar to us and maybe to many people on this call. And that is that you're conducting some type of study or experiment or some type of work where you have all these different people, yes, on the left-hand side here that are involved in different locations. So you might have a processing lab or analytical residue chemistry lab or gene expression lab. We've got sample tracking logistics. We've got biological sites, which are represented here in the middle. Again, that might be a farm. It might be one of those nice national parks that you're talking about where we're collecting data. It could be a forest that's being studied or a river, and we're getting data from those locations. And all of that can come into our software, into this platform, independent of each other. But if it's designed correctly and the variables have been set up correctly as we've described, then what happens is you have a flow where that seamlessly comes together so that we can then feed information and reports back out to all the different collaborators that are involved on this right-hand side. Maybe that's to EPA or to USDA, or maybe it's to another business or QA or QC. So basically what the platform allows us is not only the ability to very efficiently collect data, but also to compile that data, to put it together in one platform, and then to be able to pull it together in reports. And those reports don't have to look the same. Perhaps EPA and USDA don't want to see the same things. We don't have to send them all the data.
Or maybe they want to see the same things. They just have a different standard form. Imagine that.
That's exactly right. And you are correct. We can design those templates for those reports to look differently so that everybody's happy with what they get. So basically, I and many people have enjoyed the use of this platform because it allows for all of these different things, good design, efficient collection, even without a connection, but a web-based platform where we can access data from anywhere, the ability to give different people different views for the data they need to input that may differ from someone else, the fact that we can work remotely, and then that we can report it all.
And when you think about all the different studies that you guys are doing, you have a lot of growth and this is really your wheelhouse with EPA, USDA. There's other things that are happening outside of that, but your real wheelhouse is in the products, the projects, the studies, and trials, as you mentioned, Daniel. Is this what you're seeing today? These are all active studies that are happening right now?
That's correct, Dave. Yeah. So, it's a very busy season for us in North America and soon to be Latin America. A lot of studies going on right now, but currently in the system, from last month, we have anywhere from a 3% to a 7% growth in project studies and trials. So I'm not going to read each one of these numbers, but you can see there's a lot of activity going on. And this kind of goes back into me saying a system that's scalable. I mean, this is no small amount of data. You can see almost 37,000 variables. That's a lot of data points, and those grow exponentially. So, a system that can handle this amount of data is extremely important because, like we've reiterated many times, missing a growing season, missing any period of time where something's timely, is a loss of money and, possibly loss of jobs because of that. So, I mean, this stuff, you don't get a do-over basically. So, being able to scale and not having a problem when you do scale is extremely important.
I think it's also important that we didn't mention the words, but, this has been used, can be used, insect resistant management data, or basically about any kind of data that you want to put into the system. As long as you know the variables you need, it can work in this system.
Love it. So we're going to ask this, and we're going to, if you have any other questions that you have, if you'd like to continue the conversation with somebody on your team that has a specific requirement. I saw some things coming in from different agencies earlier about some of the requirements that you have. If you want to continue the conversation, if you'd like to be part of a pilot, because that's another part. If you have a smaller organization, you want to say, hey, I want to see if this works. We're seeing that happen. We're also going to have another briefing on this, probably not until the middle of October, since this is the crazy time for fiscal year end. Or if you'd like to be a speaker for the next briefing, we're opening that up to people too. So if you'd like to participate in some other way, please feel free to do that. And then as far as session takeaways, who wants to take this one?
I'll take it.
All right.
So first of all, that eStudy platform, as you can see, we believe we would love to hear about your problems because we feel like eStudy is a great platform to approach it with. Of course, we also appreciate it when we find things we can't do because we learn a lot, and we learn a lot about what we can be doing. Remember, good design equals good data at the end, and not only at the end on the continuous use of. And you cannot scale bad data. You will go nuts trying to, as you say, fix it, repair it, go back, all those things. So it's an important process to take and think about these things early. And we hope you learned at least that from us, that even though it seems very simple and rudimentary, it is incredibly important to what we're feeling on what I call the back end of all this data growth.
So, and there's a lot of problems, and AI, and we're actually going to be doing a briefing on AI later this week, and some of the implications of that. And it's not a panacea either, because you got to train that to do what you want it to do to fix the data on the bad data on the back end. And I love the methodology and the feedback that we've heard from different folks at USDA, EPA, FDA about the importance of having the good data. If you have the good data, then everything works, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
So as I mentioned earlier, there is no obligation to purchase from any vendor, including iAdvantage. But if you want to, you can, because you guys are a small business and you have a GSA contract. And if you need any other checkbox, they have other folks that they work through. And if you have any suggestions for them, they're willing to take that as well. As far as the procurement side, if you need to engage any of your contracting people, you can reach out to Jamie or Daniel. I'm sure they'll be able to help, right, guys?
Oh, absolutely. Please.
Yeah.
We love hearing about stuff that's going on in the world.
That's right. So we will we'll make sure you get that. You will get a recap. As I mentioned, we recorded this so that you can submit it to all of the places for awards. Your your Oscars and things like that. We love all those things, and comedy relief and things, anything that's like that. Anyhow, you will get a copy of this later today, early tomorrow, and there'll be a finalized version of this for later. And if you'd like to chat with the guys one-on-one, and Kelly as well, if you'd like to chat with them, how much does it cost to just chat with you one-on-one for meetings? Nothing. This is my favorite four-letter word. Free. So we appreciate you guys. It's always great to see you. Great job. Daniel, the first time you were here, Daniel. So good stuff.
This is awesome being here. Awesome.
We had to do something to make you, Jamie, and I look better, right?
Now, I love it. And Kelly, I love when Kelly talks because she comes from the scientific background and says, hey, this is what we're doing. She's in the field right now, filling this stuff out on behalf of clients and helping clients do it. Right, Kelly? That's what you're doing right now. So that's great. So we appreciate everybody joining us. If you need anything else, you have their email addresses right here and the phone number for Jamie. You can reach out and pick up the phone. Any last minute comments for everybody, except stay cool, because it's freaking blazing up here. I don't know what's happening in the rest of the country, but it's blazing here in Maryland.
No, we're good. Thank you.
Thanks to everybody for attending and for answering our polls.
Yeah, that's right. We appreciate you guys and everything that you do to help the organization and the rest of the American people. We love it. Appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.